Time for the questions. Do the Academy Awards matter? On the big picture, grand scale, I suppose they don't. However, I don't think they are irrelevant. I think movies are important. I think television is important, and talking about it is of value, even though we roll our eyes during a lot of the acceptance speeches and slaps and all of that kind of thing. I'm Bob Thompson, a professor of television and film at the Newhouse School of Public Communications, and this is Q's Explains the Oscars. The envelope has been handed to me, and the questions are: Number one, can you give a brief history of the Oscars? Well, I suppose the highlights is it started at the Roosevelt Hotel, the first awards in 1929. The Oscars as we experience them, however, really doesn't begin in any big way until they start on television in 1953. And at that point, the Oscars came not just this self-indulgent, the industry awarding themselves for the work they had done the previous year, but it became a national pastime. It became a celebration. People began to have Oscar parties and all of that kind of thing. Question two, who are the voters for the Oscars? This is a fascinating question. There is nothing about the Academy Awards that is in any way scientifically saying this is the best or the second best or whatever. The only thing that the Oscars determine is what the industry at any given time determined by the most votes were the best in all of these various categories. That's all it tells us. As for who actually does this voting, it's members of the Academy, and the nominations, the first part of it, is usually done by the people in the category that's being nominated. And then in the final votes, everybody in the Academy get to vote for all the categories. Why are the Academy Awards called the Oscars? Who knows? There are a couple of theories on this. All of them sound incredibly suspicious to me. The most common one is that the librarian at the Academy said, this looks like my Uncle Oscar. Not a very good story, actually, so maybe it is true, because you'd have thought if you were going to make one up, you'd make one up better than that. What are some of the most notable Academy Award-winning movies? One of the most interesting to me, and also one that tells us all kinds of things about the problematic history of the Oscars and the United States and everything else. Hattie McDaniel for Gone with the Wind got the Best Supporting Actor Oscar, and she wasn't allowed to sit at the table with the rest of the Gone with the Wind nominees because the hotel that it was in was still restricted as to who got to come in and who got to stay there and all of the rest of it. As for the statistics of notable Oscars, there's a three-way tie for the most Oscars for a single movie. Titanic, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, and Ben-Hur. My favorite movie of all time is Mary Poppins, the original from 1964. It was the first movie I ever saw in a theater. It's also the first time I remember watching an Oscars presentation in the living room. Bob Hope, I remember, was the host at the time, and Mary, Julie Andrews, I think won for Best Actress that year, so I have some vague memory of the ritual of watching an Oscars presentation in what was still a black and white television set in our living room. Mary Poppins did not, however, get Best Picture. And the next question, what are some of the most infamous Oscar snubs? The fact that Alfred Hitchcock never won a Best Directing award is always surprising. Citizen Kane didn't get the Best Picture award, but for many, many years was in the top of the list of many, many people as the best picture ever made. Even Barbie, which everybody was so head over heels over, had a few places, including Greta Gerwig as director. What are the Oscar statuettes made of? Well, we do know one thing about these things is they're heavy. I think 8 pounds approximately. In the beginning, they were bronze plated with gold. And then during World War II, there was a metal shortage, so they were painted plaster. Then in 1982, instead of bronze, it was made of pewter and then plated with gold and silver kind of thing. And fairly recently, I think 2016 or so, they went back to the old school bronze with 24 karat gold plated, and I believe that's still what they are made of. How do you watch the Oscars? I watch them with a clipboard, so I'm actually taking notes, so it's part of my job description. But I have to confess that the thing I enjoy most about watching the Oscars is that it's live television. And in live television, anything can happen. Two of the most, hesitate to say the word pleasant, but the most fun moments of watching the Oscars were the famous Chris Rock, Will Smith thing. That was live television. But the highlight of all, a little before that, was when the whole thing leads up to the big ending of giving the Oscar to the Best Picture. This is the final culmination of the entire year of Hollywood. And they give it to the wrong movie, La La Land, when it was supposed to go to Moonlight. I mean, you could not have made up a more absurd mistake on live television. That was fun to watch. At the end of every broadcast of the Oscars, having think, okay, there goes 3 hours of my life that I'll never get back again. I suppose the question is always, why do we care? Do the Academy Awards matter? On the big picture, grand scale of the history of the universe, I suppose they don't. There are a lot of other things that matter a lot more. However, I don't think they are irrelevant. I think the idea of a big cultural industry like the movie industry recognizing and pointing out the achievements of what they have done in the previous year is a valuable exercise. Well, it was great fun talking about the Oscars with everybody. I hope you had fun as well. And maybe this year, instead of just looking at your phone the day after to see who won all the awards and whether anyone did anything controversial, you may actually do the ye olden days thing of sitting down and actually watching the broadcast on television. I so nailed that.